Life on a manor. Life in the Middle Ages centered around the manor, or a large estate, of a feudal lord. The wealthier lords lived in large castles, but most lived in manor houses. The size of a lord's manor house depended on his wealth. Clustered around or near the castle or manor house were the huts and shops of the serfs and freemen who worked for the lord. Together with a chapel and a mill, these structures made up a small village. Beyond the village were the lord's fields, pasture land, and woods for hunting. Most manors in the Middle Ages were laid out in this fashion. Because some sources estimate that 90% of Europe's population during feudal times were made up of peasants, they are the focal point of this packet. While the lord and his family in their castle or manor house enjoyed all the comforts associated with their position, the peasant and his family struggled just to survive. There were two types of peasants, freedmen and serfs. Freedmen had higher status because they were not bound to anyone, but their lives were nearly as hard as the serfs' lives. With bandits and invaders roaming the countryside, looting and killing at will, peasants had no way of defending themselves. Thus, many entered into contracts with powerful lords. In return for the right to seek safety inside the walls of the lord's castle or manor house in times of trouble, many peasants agreed that they and their descendants would become serfs and work the fields of their protectors. They also agreed to give their lords a certain percentage of the crops they grew on the land they rented as tenant farmers, as well as some of the livestock they raised. But serfs were not slaves. They had certain rights that slaves never enjoyed. One was the right to strips of land on which they met their needs for food, clothing, and shelter. After meeting their own needs and the amount due to the lord, they could sell the rest. Another was a guarantee that they could not be sold separately from the land they were bound to. Serfs were as much a part of the lord's land as they were the buildings and the fields. If a lord sold his estate to another lord, the serfs quite naturally went along as part of the deal.